All we're here to do is provide care. Whatever the body does and whenever the Lord calls them home, that's not up to us. You know? The man says, I was very angry, but when I sat with my anger long enough, he told me his real name was grief, right? If you did not love, you wouldn't be sad.
Oh, wow.
If you didn't lose something that was of great value to you, you wouldn't feel anything. It's not as much like in the movies where they say a few words and then the last. It's not like that at all. You're living like he's going to come back one day. He's not coming back. And I'm like, I wanted to punch him.
What is hospice care?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, that's funny you say that. Most people don't know what hospice is until they have to know. And the reason why is it's basically care for those who are terminally ill and typically for people's loved ones, right? So like, say your grandma or grandpa's in the hospital and they have a terminal disease and the doctor comes and says, hey, there's not much else we can do. At this point, the next point of action is comfort, right? How do we make their lives as comfortable as possible as they're transitioning to the end? And so that's where hospice comes in.
I was also looking, you guys do palliative care and home health. And are those different from hospice care?
They are, yeah. So home health is coming, that is in the process, but palliative care we've been doing for a couple of years. So palliative care, even though like palliative care is like the umbrella statement of basically like hospice would fall into it, home health would fall into it. But what it mainly focuses on is people who have a chronic illness, not a terminal one, who need symptom management. And so who would benefit from that? Say, again, you have an elder loved one who has got a heart condition, you know, they're not dying, you know, but they have a condition they have to live with. They could live with it for, you know, years, decades, right? But they have a hard time going to the doctor. They need someone to check on them more often, right? The more sick you are, the more attention you need, right? So like you and I, maybe we go to the doctor a couple times in the next, I don't know, 5, 6 years, whatever, 10 years. We barely go, right? We don't go that often because we're fine.
Yeah.
But those who are ill, they need to be checked on more often.
What inspired him to open up the organization?
Yeah, you know, we're Armenian, and you know, obviously, you know, Corey, we grew up knowing each other pretty well. Taking care of our elders is like a natural form of life for us, right? Like our grandparents live with us, you know, we wait on them hand and foot when we were young. What do you need, Grandpa? Let me help you put your socks on. Let me help you, you know, get out of the bath, whatever. Like it's just natural to us. And when my dad and my sister and my mom decided to do something like this, they saw a need for it. And I said, hey, look, people are doing this in other cities in California. They have friends who know who are doing it, but we don't really have something like that here in Sacramento. There's a big need for it. And my sister Esther, who is our COO, Director of Operations, she was in the medical industry for a long time. And she was like, I would love to be part of something like that. And so they started it.
You joined a little bit later on. So what inspired you to make the jump?
So I felt the Lord leading me into this. You know, I felt like God was like, this is the next step for you. And it wasn't easy, man, because I had a really comfortable life at the bank. I was like, no, I'm making good money. I know what I'm doing here. I have a title. I have my responsibilities, but it's not like the weight of a company on my shoulders, you know? And then when I went full-time to hospice, man, I felt that pressure. You know, we have 40 staff members, you know, every month you got to hit payroll, right?
Peace and hope on one's last journey, just to summarize, paraphrase.
Yeah.
So did any of your family values contribute or shape that mission?
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that because I think when I talk about some of those values that we have for our Armenians, it's pretty like, well, of course we have those values, you know, honoring our elders, dignity, respect, you know, caring for people, having a moral standard for things. It's natural to us, especially when it comes to people. That's always been heavy in our family too, you know, thinking long-term, right? Not cutting corners, not trying to shortcut things to make a quick buck. And you can easily down some of the visits, right? You can shorten staff up to a point where you're doing the bare minimum. There's plenty of places that do that. And you could become more lucrative, pocket the money more, or you can do the right thing, making sure that the patient gets everything they need. And if you do the right thing, long-term, everything will pay off. So that's our goal.
What's motivating to the expansion into those other aspects?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically home health and palliative care, they're like brother and sisters to what hospice is. Hospice obviously is terminal, you know, they're passing away, but home health also works with seniors typically who have had surgeries or injuries who need rehabilitation. And so oftentimes what happens is we have people who are in hospice care who need home health. We refer out to home health all the time and home health refers out to us. And the same with palliative care. So palliative care, oftentimes people have, you know, illnesses that are chronic. They may not need hospice now, but they'll eventually need it. And so what that allows us to do is it allows us to stay with people, to take care of people long term, to get them familiar with us, so that when that transition happens, and it could be when we've had people on palliative care for 5-6 years, it's not like we get them on and,
Right.
it's not made for just transition, it's made for care. But we've seen that those things actually work together.
What's that process look like when someone calls, reaches out to you for care, and
Totally.
how do you guys get them signed up?
Great question. So hospice isn't something that we would go looking for. Oftentimes hospice is referred to us. And the way it's referred to us is if a loved one has a terminal illness and they've gotten to a point where there's not much else a doctor can do, that at that point, typically the doctor or whoever's care the loved one's in would reach out to us.
Yeah, what are those misconceptions?
So a lot of people think that as soon as your loved one's on hospice, they have to die. Like that we're going to administer like morphine and get them really like drugged up to the point where they're going to pass. That is never the case. The medicine we give them is only when they're in real need of it, right? So we've had people on hospice who've graduated off hospice.
Wow.
They've been on hospice for over a year and they stopped declining. Sometimes they actually got a little better. And so the moment that happens, we remove them off hospice. We'll stay in touch. We'll check on them sometimes through palliative care, or we'll make sure they're okay. Because the last thing we want is for them to get off hospice, decline fast, and then not have our services when they pass. That would be horrible.
On the website, it looks like there's like trinkets and other like memorabilia that people can get. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And do people find that helpful?
It started when a few years back when a certain loved one said, I have like clothes from my dad that I'd love to turn into something. And so the idea became, well, what if we could take some of your loved one's stuff, whether it's clothing or bed sheets or whatever, and turn it into a teddy bear, or turn it into like a little memorable thing that, is specifically something they owned. And so it's a free program. People donate into it because sometimes what will happen is, we'll take care of people and they're like, I just loved how you took care of my dad. Can I just write you a check for $1,000 as a gift towards what you're doing? And that happens quite often. And so we're like, this is wonderful. How can we take that money and reinvest it back into patient care, loved ones? And so that's how we created Legacy.
Wow.
Yeah. So when we get donations, most of it goes right back into, just doing stuff like that.
But do you have any like testimonies on people getting healed or living longer after the chaplain services or turning to spirituality?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if we've had anything as that I could remember that specific, but the chaplain definitely is versed on all religions because they have to be, right? So we don't go and like push a certain faith on anybody. What he does is what I love is oftentimes people are weary to want to talk very deep. And you'd be surprised. You think you're at the end of your life. This is not the time where you want to get really into like your conversation with the Lord, but they're scared. There's a lot of fear involved, And so what he's so good at, and this is Tom's our main guy. He's just wonderful. He's been with us 10 years. He just likes to go and sit with them, and he'll play music for them. He'll talk about things that they like to talk about. He'll joke with them. He's got a great sense of humor too.
Can you tell me about the 13 months of grievance support that you guys offer?
Yeah.
What is that about?
So it's a follow-up that our social workers will do. We'll have grief counseling, grief networking. So we would invite them to our office, or we go to where they are. There's this old quote where the man says, I was very angry, but when I sat with my anger long enough, he told me his real name was grief. A lot of our emotions are out of whack, right? Like we don't know, like I don't know how many emotions we should be able to tap into, but the easy ones are anger, because anger makes us feel strong, right? Unfortunately, grief doesn't go away unless you feel it, right? And if you're not going to allow yourself to sit with it, to allow yourself to be in it, to feel the feeling of grief, because what is really grief at the end of it? It's an expression of your love, right? If you did not love, you wouldn't be sad.
Oh, wow.
If you didn't lose something that was of great value to you, you wouldn't feel anything.
What are the 5 stages of grief?
It's anger, it's bargaining, it's depression, it's denial, and then of course it's acceptance. I know acceptance is the last one because that's how we get to the end of it. Even with those, someone who put it together, the 5 stages of grief, it isn't always in order, right? Like you would think you start with like, okay, anger first, and then bargaining, and then denial, or was it denial first? But oftentimes you do all of them. I found myself coming to acceptance, like, great, okay, I accept it. My dad's gone. He's not going to be here anymore. I have to accept the fact that He won't be at my kids' parties. I won't get to go fishing with them anymore. I won't get to call him every time I'm going through something. I need to talk to him. I have to accept these realities of like, I'm going to walk into my parents' home and he's not there anymore, you know? And it's like, man, that was heavy. It's okay. I accept it. And then I'm back to anger again. I'm back to like, denial of it. The more you loved somebody, the more you were attached to them, man, the heavier it is, you know? And
what's the difference from a level 1 and a level 2?
I think the level 2 is associated with the VA. Yeah. So the VA has, I think, 3 to 4 levels of like, how involved are you with them? Are you, providing additional support and care to the veterans? And the more involved you are, the more they give you, the higher levels you get and the more access you get to work with them. Joint Commission only has 1. It's just either you get the gold seal or you don't. So that's the separation between us two.
And you guys serve a wide region too. I mean, you got Sacramento, El Dorado, Placer, Yolo. With that broad reach, do you guys ever run into challenges of being spread thin?
No. So we try to do it within an hour of our hub. So we're based in Rancho. So we have a decent sized office with supplies, training, everything that they need. So our nurses will always start there. They'll get their supplies. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. Like our home health aides will take cleaning supplies. I mean, diapers if they need it, whatever, right? Like you name it. It's like we have a whole big old space of just supplies, but we don't try to go past an hour just in case, one, convenience of us getting to them on time. And we try to position it where, say, if we have patients in Elk Grove, then the nurse we have who lives in Elk Grove will visit those patients. And we have people calling sometimes that are pretty far out. Like, could you take care of us? Like, look, could we do it? Yes. Will we provide the best care? No. So it's not in our policy to do that. You want someone who's closer to you,
Yeah. 100%. That makes sense. But what about education? How does that play into the whole factor of hospice care?
We've come to find that people are interested in like, well, what is hospice exactly? What really goes into it? And probably similar to you, unless you've had a loved one on hospice, you're not really going to know, what it is and what it entails. So what we've done is we've created a few platforms of just educating the community. One is a YouTube channel. So we'll have like hospice talks. What is hospice? What is the daily, routine of a hospice nurse? We created a little booklet as well. That's like interactive between like, it's almost like an animated version of a story. So it's like animals talking and it's breaking it down really simple. We have our social media platforms that also talk about it. And there's just tons of resources. Also, if you ever want to call and talk to someone, our staff is ready. I mean, they can take as much time as you want to explain it all to you.
Do you have 1 or 2 testimonies on how your hospice care impacted a family and what it meant for them?
One of the interesting ones is we had one of the assistant coaches of a national football team. And he did a research and said, you guys seem like the best one in the area for my mom. Can you take care of my mom? And we took care of his mom. He was so grateful. He got us an NFL ball signed by the whole team. And things like that we just love because it's like, oftentimes our nurses are tired and it's difficult. Some patients are difficult to deal with, right? People who are getting older and getting sick, they're cranky. Not every old person is sweet to be around, But we encourage them with like, hey, look, that the time is limited. Do the best you can. Oftentimes, most of what I do, most of what our leaders do is encourage our staff, right? I'm like, hey, you're in the front line. Everything you do matters. The family members, trust me. Like they might not be reiterating to you very often, but it's so important what you do.
So where can people find your YouTube channel, your Facebook, your Instagram?
Yeah.
To check out some more of those testimonials and background around.
Yeah. If you look up RC Hospice Care on YouTube, you'll find it. Our website is www.rchc.org. If you just go to Google and type in RC Hospice, everything will come up. You'll be able to check our reviews. Our website's on there. We have an Instagram.
Do you do anything to deal with stress or burnout or even secondhand trauma? I mean, these people are on their last few moments. So how do you deal with that when that kind of creeps into this line of work?
No, that's great. So we have some protocols in place with our head nurses and our directors to pay attention to any of our staff members that are showing signs of burnout because it's very real, right? Like they have to balance, right, between not getting too emotionally involved while also still caring for these people at an emotional level. Our directors, our leaders are paying attention to the staff members. If there are any of them that are showing signs of burnout, that they pull them aside, they talk to them to find out, what do you need? Do you need some time off? Do you need some counseling? Do you need anything from us? How can we support you? And then another thing we do is company-wide is we give free reign for all of our staff to go sit with our chaplain, to go sit with our social workers. Do you need to go sit with, one of our staff members who's versed in counseling to just talk? On the clock, anytime you want. Go and do that.
If someone wanted to get into this field, what foundational advice would you give them before they got started?
Working alone is probably the best way to start, right? Learning the ins and outs of it. I mean, one, for us, we would never be able to do something like this if we didn't partner with a nurse and a medical director. So that's huge, right? Like having some background in the medical industry, partnering with a nurse. If you're a nurse yourself, that'll probably be an easier way to do it. But right now, California's put a hold on giving out hospice licenses. So right now, the answer is you can't, unfortunately. But if you want to be part of one, of course, I think it's such a great industry to be in, right? To work with these companies. And, there isn't a big ceiling either, right? You can work your way up to a director. You can work your way up to being COO. Degrees help, but most of it is experience, having the right personality type for it, right? Having the right skill set for it, the right enthusiasm. I think those are the most important factors.
On that note, if someone passes away, what do people miss the most about them?
I've heard people miss their smell. That's a big one. People miss their jokes if they're humorous. It's the uniquenesses of them, It isn't typically the generalized stuff. It's the unique stuff. It's like, oh, grandpa would always say this, or, grandma's perfume, I miss the smell. Or like for me, like my grandma who passed away a year and a half ago, every time she saw me, she had a saying. She would say certain things, or she would pat me on the back. She'd be very humorous. I think it's those consistent things we would see when we would see them that we miss the most.
The little things.
Yep.
Have you ever been with someone where they're terminally ill and they have their final words that has stuck with you?
No, I wouldn't say off the top of my head. Because most people who are passing, it's not as much like in the movies where they say a few words and then it's the last. It's not like that at all. It's actually a lot more. It's not fun to watch. It really isn't. Oftentimes when they're passing, they're not talking anymore. They're mostly not. They're consciously not there. They're breathing heavy. They're groaning. They're moaning. It's not a pretty sight, and you could tell they're in some pain. Sometimes it feels like there's a spiritual battle happening too. You could tell there's an uneasiness in the room, which is why anything you have to say your loved one, say before it's the last day. Oftentimes you don't get a chance to talk to them on their last day.
Thank you guys for tuning in on this episode of Key Concepts Podcast. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.